Even though the housing market here in Florida generally follows the trend of we have the most sales during the spring and summer months, just like many other states, we also have a little bit of a bump in the wintertime due to all the snowbirds that come down here. And in the past, a lot of people would buy real estate during this time, specifically condos, is because condos are like the perfect deal for people that don't want to spend the full year anywhere, because it's easy to lock it up, just leave it behind, and there's more security, it's less expensive most of the time, and it's just easier to have a condo as a second home. You don't have as much to worry about like you do with a house. Well, this last condo buying season here over this past winter here in Florida was one of the worst ones that we have seen since the GFC. And it's not really a big surprise, guys, because people don't want to buy these condos now, because I think the word is out, in part thanks to me putting this out there, that there are major problems right now with a lot of these condos. Not all of them. There are some of them that are very healthy in terms of reserves, in terms of the building's structure, things like that. But you have a lot of old buildings here that have just not been maintained for decades, and those buildings are the ones that are at the biggest risk right now for potential construction issues as well as issues financially moving forward. So when we look at the numbers between November 2023 and April 2024, there was 13,735 condos sold, but in the year prior, that number was 15,585. So it already took a hit by about 2,000 sales. That's already pretty significant. But the year before that, between 2021 and 2022, basically the height of the real estate mania, it was 26,320 condos were sold during this time frame. So the sales numbers have dropped substantially since this whole buying frenzy, and the inventory is starting to come back up. And so the last time the condo sales were actually this low was the winter buying season between 2008 and 2009, when only 940 units were sold, which was right smack dab right there during the housing crash. Here we have a house for sale for about $2.6 million, and if you take a look, this house has not been sold since May of 1986 for 140 grand. And their property tax bill is still only $7,200 a year. After all these years owning the house is really not so bad. But here's something I want you to pay attention to, and explains how all these old rich baby boomers are so flush with cash. Back in 2021, they took out a mortgage against this place for 400 grand for only 2.96% interest, which means that's $400,000 of funny money to go and spend, and still have plenty of equity left over when they sell this house. And then you combine that with stimulus checks and all the PPP loans and everything that went out in this economy, it's no wonder the cost of everything went parabolic. So if we take a look at this chart here, this shows you that leading up to that housing crash, that was the lowest year that we had in 2007 to 2008, and ever since the recovery started happening around the end of 2009 to 2010, the sales started bouncing back and were pretty stable for a while, started kind of tapering down, and then boom, during the pandemic shot up once again, and now they are falling below any of these levels that we have seen over the past 15 years. And let's face it, guys, the reality is not only are more people aware of the problems going forward with a lot of these condos and how bad of shape they might be in both financially and structurally, but the other issue is that just like any other piece of real estate, the prices have exploded. Okay, and it's not really feasible for a lot of people to buy these condos. You know, gone are the days when you used to be able to just buy a cheap home, second condo here in Florida to come to. There are still places you can do that, but it's quickly becoming a thing of the past, especially here in South Florida. If you want something halfway decent in a nice area, you're going to be spending at least $300,000-400,000 in most cases. We've already gone over the perfect storm that condos are facing right now. All these buildings need to have full reserves starting by the end of this year. They need to pass structural integrity inspections and make the necessary repairs. And then there's the skyrocketing insurance rates ever since the Surfside condo collapsed. And there's just all these things that are kind of hitting at the same time, which is making it the perfect storm for condos. So it looks like we are on the precipice of a real estate crash here, at least in the condo market, which is all but guaranteed at this point, mainly because when we see the amount of inventory that's going up here in Florida with the amount of condos hitting the market, and simultaneously the sales numbers are plummeting down to Great Recession levels, that's a pretty strong sign that things are not going to get better before they get a lot worse. Ultimately, I think this is a good thing, because when real estate gets overheated, no matter what it is, then it's good for prices to come down, guys. So even though I own a condo and the value of mine will fall likely along with all the others, I don't really care, because unless you're selling, it's not that big of a deal. And also, if it does go down significantly, you better believe I will be making sure that Miami-Dade County lowers my tax assessment so I can pay less in property taxes each year, because that is the downside of your property value going up every year, is that you get charged more in taxes. So if prices do go down substantially here, you better believe I'll be requesting that my tax bill be lowered. But I do think that this whole problem with condos is gonna shine a light on the buildings that have been doing a good job with maintenance and have healthy financials, and it's gonna make those buildings and those condos even more desirable once it's really revealed which buildings are in strong financial health and which ones aren't, because nobody wants to buy into a sinking ship, guys. Nobody wants to buy a place and have to deal with problems for years or maybe even a decade moving forward. I mean, I wouldn't want that if I was looking to buy a condo right now. But this could actually be good news for people that own condos in financially and physically healthy buildings. It's yet to be seen how it's going to affect those individual places, but I have a feeling it will make them more desirable. Another thing that's desirable right now is an assumable mortgage. Now that we've had, 7% mortgage rates for a long time, people are looking for any way possible to save when they're looking to buy a house, and an assumable mortgage is a way. I've kind of covered this a little bit in the past. Basically, any loan from the federal government is usually assumable, like a VA loan, an FHA loan, also a USDA loan. Those are all assumable loans, okay? But the thing is, so many people are looking to do this right now. FHA recently just doubled their maximum fee up to $1,800 for assuming the mortgage, because it's a lot of work for the originators to do this, and they want to get paid. And since the mortgage industry is in the tank right now, they got to do something to make some extra money. So doubling the fee is what they came up with. But the biggest issue with assuming someone else's mortgage is there's a lot of manual paperwork labor, let's call it, that needs to happen behind the scenes in order to make something like this possible. So not only is it not profitable, but it's a lot of work for the people involved, so no one really wants to do it. And there's companies out there that are trying to actually change this, make it more streamlined for people to be able to assume others' mortgages. One company I talked about in the past was Rome. There's another one called Dark Matter that are trying to expedite these loan assumptions right now for people. Now the thing is, guys, I don't have anything against anybody assuming someone's mortgage. I think it's actually a really smart thing to do if the opportunity is available. But the reason I want to just bring this up is because it just highlights this problem that we're having with real estate right now, which is, once again, that it's so unaffordable that there's all different types of ways that people are looking for to try to get into a house right now without truly being able to afford today's rates and prices. An assumable mortgage is one of them, but also you just saw that United Wholesale Mortgage came out with their 0% down mortgage, and you're likely going to see other lenders like Zillow Mortgage and Rocket Mortgage probably follow them. And we have the mortgage rate buy downs with the builders is very popular with new construction. And despite all of these programs, despite everything that's happening right now to try to get people in, the real estate market in general is still in the tank. It's not recovered to the point that people keep saying it is. And then the problem is people keep hearing these stories about, oh, the prices are going up, and it creates FOMO. But I've explained this several times here on the channel that the prices are going up because the homes that are being sold are more expensive. There's fewer homes being sold, and at the same time the ones that are being sold are more expensive, which pushes up the median price in any given area. And the reason for that is because only people that make a lot of money can buy right now, guys. That's the reason why you're seeing the numbers go up. I guarantee you if home sales doubled, okay, and we start seeing double the amount of sales that we saw just last month, that you would see the median home price plummet, because that would mean that more people are buying homes on the lower end too, not just the higher end, and that would likely reflect in the data that prices are coming down. But because you're only seeing more expensive homes being sold right now, it makes it look like prices are up everywhere. And here's another sign that things are not going as good as they say it is with real estate right now, is that the Census Bureau recently had to revise down 25% of the pandemic era price spikes of the new single family home sales. Well, why is that? I guess everybody's head got so mixed up and turned around backwards during the pandemic that not even the Census Bureau could accurately collect data. Not like the government's data is that accurate anyways, especially when we're talking about inflation. But they're going back to 2020 and making huge revisions right now. And they're saying that they chopped off $36,000 from the median price at the peak in October of 2022, taking it from the old number of $496,800 down to the new and improved number of $460,000 was the real selling price of these single family homes. And guess what, guys? When the comps are not accurate, it pushes up home values in the area. It pushes up appraisals to artificially high numbers because appraisers are looking at the sold value of these homes. And on top of that, these builders give massive mortgage rate buy downs, and that's not reflected in the sold price because that's a huge credit they give to the buyer in order to get the house. That doesn't show up in the final sales price, but it does show up in the buyer's monthly payment. This is how serious this is, guys, because think about this. During the pandemic, median sale price of a brand new house went up $150,000, okay? But with this $38,000 downward revision in these prices, that means that these homes were actually 25% less expensive than what was initially reported. Talk about being lied to. Whether this was intentional or not, it doesn't really matter. The point is that what we're seeing right now and what you're seeing in the news and the headlines is not real. What's real is what's real life, what people see in their neighborhoods. That's why I love when you guys make comments here and let me know what's going on in your area, because there are some areas that are still really hot with real estate. There's a lot of areas that are not hot anymore, and inventory is piling up with price reductions. And you can take a look at this chart here and it shows you just how wrong these prices were starting in 2020. And it's funny that only at this time was when the data was inaccurate, because the whole world was upside down. They couldn't even collect the housing data properly. Now I'm gearing up to leave Miami for the summer, which I'm really happy about, especially with how hot it is. Tomorrow will actually be my last video you guys will see of me in Miami until I come back in November. William sent me this story on Miami I want to cover here with how crazy things are here in Miami. And what it's about is how much people have to struggle to live here now, even though Miami used to be a fairly cheap place to live. That's no longer the case. It hasn't been pretty much since the pandemic. When we look at the data in Miami here, it kind of is the poster child of why this economy is not ready for interest rate cuts, okay? Because Miami has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the entire country at only 2.7%, so even below the national average. But inflation here is also much higher than any other metro. So we have this conundrum where unemployment's low and inflation is high, which makes sense because the more people that are working, the more people that have money, then the more people can keep spending into this economy. We've had home prices here basically double over the past 5 or 6 years. Inflation here is not going down at the level that other places are seeing. When you take a look at this chart, you can see that Miami is still sitting at around a 4.5% inflation rate roughly compared to all these other big metros like New York and Boston, Atlanta. And it's because the economy here is actually still booming. And you know, it's funny, guys, because I see a lot of stupid comments, people saying, oh, that must be a Florida problem or a Miami problem, but things are good where I'm at. Well, things are still going pretty good here too, But what we're talking about with the slowing economy is the macro economy, the entire US economy. And just like real estate, local economies can reflect a different reality than the overall macro economy. Even though the housing market crashed by, 30% in '08, not everywhere saw a 30% cut in prices. Some places were worse than that. Some places were not bad at all. Some places even saw prices go up during this time. And I think we're going to see the same thing happen again. But what's really pushing things along here in Miami is the amount of people moving in here with money, guys. Take a look at this. The median income of people who moved into Miami-Dade County in 2021 was about $230,000 a year, according to the IRS data. Well, maybe they'll revise that down too, huh? But you also see a lot of people leaving South Florida because of how expensive it has gotten. In fact, the median income of people who are leaving is only $66,400. So you have this dynamic here where the rich are moving in and pushing out the poor. And not even like saying that $66,000 a year is poor, but it makes it unaffordable when people that are moving in have so much more money than you do. Here's the caveat. Even though the economy here in Miami is still booming, a lot of the jobs that are coming up right now are very low paying service jobs. We're talking medical assistants, home health aides, cooks, waiters, housekeepers, warehouse jobs, delivery staff, basically the help, the help that rich people need. But eventually, what I think might happen is they're going to have to raise the pay for those people, just like we saw with the housekeeping industry in Palm Beach, because as it continues to get so expensive here, less and less of the help can afford to live here, and therefore they need to start paying those people more in order to keep them here working. Just like we saw with the housekeepers, guys. Housekeepers are making 6 figures a year now up in Palm Beach by Mar-a-Lago because it's so hard to get good and reliable housekeeping up there. So the wages here are also not keeping up with inflation, just like they are not on a national level either. The wages here have risen 24% since January of 2018. The national average went up 30%, but we know that inflation has gone up by roughly that amount as well. And when you factor in taxes and everything else, you're actually more broke than you were before the pandemic. In this story, they talked to this real estate agent that moved here from LA in 2020 during the pandemic. He lives over in Brickell, which is over by downtown Miami, very urban, dense area with nothing but high rises, guys. It's just like a concrete jungle over there. And he was paying $5,000 a month in rent, which was already high back then, but now he's paying 50% more at $7,500 a month in rent. And the guy said he doesn't want to move. He loves the place. It's close to his real estate office. He says it's worth its weight in gold. Like $7,500 a month in rent is worth its weight in gold. Never heard that one before. I mean, I pay far less than this guy for my place that I own on the beach, guys. And I know everybody has different feelings about this, but as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to living in Miami, I will take the beach any day over living in downtown or Brickell in the concrete jungle where there's nothing but streets and sidewalks and homeless people, okay? Over on the beach, we just have a much better lifestyle. And if you love the beach, there's nothing like it. But even this real estate agent is breaking the cardinal rule of personal finance, guys. And he's spending now over 40% of his monthly income on the rent. So he's doing pretty well for himself as a real estate agent. But when you're getting close to half of your income just on the rent, that's not very smart. What a lot of people are worried about here is the fact that even though the interest rates are higher now, it's not been enough to cause unemployment to go up much or inflation to come down here in Miami. And, the Fed needs to look at more isolated examples in pockets of the country like this, where it proves that their interest rate hikes are not working, guys. That's probably why I have this perspective too, because as somebody that lives here and sees how much the cost of living has risen recently, it seems like it's never ending. It just keeps going up, okay? And if the Fed was looking at the fact that we got 4.5% inflation here in Miami, even though it might be lower in other parts of the country, that would be a wake-up call to say, hey, if we start cutting rates, then places like Miami are going to become even more overheated, things are already booming, so to speak, and if rates go down and they were never high enough to begin with to correct this overheated economy, then that could spell big trouble for an area like this. And basically this story covers, a few different people that are, working 2 and 3 jobs now just to be able to continue living here. Other people are just flat out leaving because it's too expensive. Even from my perspective, guys, even though I can afford to live here, like my wife and I do well, and we can afford this place, I would still rather live somewhere cheaper where it costs half of what it costs to live here in Miami, just to be able to build up my nest egg even further. That's the way I look at it. I've explained here countless times on the channel that we're here because of my wife's business. She loves what she does, working with the dogs. Some of you guys out there have seen her YouTube channel, and she really loves it, and the dogs love her too. And I love the fact that she loves it. So that's really what keeps us here for now. But I'm always thinking about when the day might come that we might move to a cheaper area here in Florida and just live a lower key, less expensive lifestyle. Because it comes to a point when you live somewhere like here that even though we have all the amenities in the world here in Miami. Basically anything you could want, you can get here in Miami. But when it becomes too populated and too expensive, it kind of lowers your quality of life to the point where it gets you to start thinking about going somewhere else. Now, some people love that hustle and bustle and having people everywhere and sitting in traffic, but I don't. But one thing that's definitely making it more manageable for me is that the fact that we're kind of becoming snowbirds, and we're going to be leaving, not coming back until it's nice and cool again. So it's going to be nice to get out of here, escape hurricane season and the heat. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.